Okay, so we want to thank Charlotte, Ellen, Connie, Saxon, Bobby, Judy, Kristen, and Robbie for their contributions this month. Next month, we won't have a plant forum, and we're doing an in-person meeting, which I want to thank Mark for organizing the Coffee in the Garden this last Saturday. That was great fun. We had a couple gardens on the tour and the Wave Garden as well. And if anybody wants to add to that, by all means. Here's everybody enjoying themselves. This is mostly at Mark's house, which was more suited to gathering, whereas Kip's house was more intimate, we'll put it that way. And so a lot of good friends we saw, and hopefully some new friends were met. And there's always something to talk about when you go on a garden tour, because everybody likes to talk about plants, so you never can be shy there. So this is a little bit of Mark's garden, and notice the Cantua, because we have a slide on Cantua a little later. So this is Mark. It looks like the old man of the Andes there. And his little garden creature in his fig tree there. And then this was Mark, that's a ferula, this plant in the middle. That's a little bit.
Ferula communis, although I'm probably not pronouncing it right. If there's any Latin speakers.
And that's about 6 foot tall, was it not? Or maybe taller.
Yeah, it's taller than I am.
And has really fine foliage, which you don't really see in this.
But we're really enjoying it.
Okay, and then we went to Kip's garden afterwards, and Kip's on Ashby Avenue, and you can go there and look over his, he has his fence. Here's everybody on the street, on the sidewalk looking in, and then there's a fairly, I don't know, it's probably about a 60-degree angle up. I know it's pretty steep up, and then it on the left-hand picture, it goes down. I thought it was really awesome. All I could say was,
what street was this on?
This is on Ashby, near Sacramento. Amazing garden. Has the agave silver fox. Judy,
wow.
You contributed this one. If you wanted to talk about this at all.
Yeah, I just it is a mangave, like you said, called silver fox. It's got the structure of an agave and the fast growth and color of a mangave. So it's kind of a thick, waxy coating, which gives it the kind of silvery look that you see. And it tolerates a little bit more water than other succulents. So that's kind of nice, although it's still a low water succulent. Does need well-drained soil, does need full sun, and will be evergreen, so to speak. But probably best in zones 9 to 11. So if you live in a really cool spot, it might not be as happy. But it's available through Monrovia and also through Walter's Gardens.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
Here's a couple observations that I had, and I loved how he had the string of pearls kind of as a little ground cover in between all his rocks and such. And Kip said he had gathered the rocks up in the Berkeley Hills. And like I said, it was pretty steep. And as he mentioned, if he had everything on the flat, everything would be kind of piled up on each other. So he can put a lot more plants in a small space when it's going up, right? Vertical garden kind of thing, which I thought was kind of an interesting observation. And then he has his hillside going up against his house. And so he had this pipe structure with porcelain tiles in front of it. And to the right here is his house wall. And then on the left is the pipes with the porcelain tiles that he essentially has his hillside against. And then I know, is that an astro something or other, astrophytum? I don't know what they're called.
I think so.
Thank you. And then I don't know what this aloe is. I thought it was striata, but I was looking on the internet and I can't find anything with this beautiful striping. I just think that was so gorgeous. Anybody know what that is?
I bet it's got striata parentage.
Yeah.
I thought it was just so beautiful with all that beautiful markings on there. Anyway, so that was really a treasure. And then he had Calicortis in, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And he had just redone his garden over the pandemic, so it's only a couple years old at the most. And he on the right, he has the no, that was Ludia. I can't remember if that's Ludia. Seems appropriate, but
Mhm.
you can see that he has screening over this. It almost looks like a euphorbia next to the left. And evidently he just put that out. He's screening against sunburn, he said. And then on the left, it's he has a I think it's Calicortis alba, which is a dark form of alba. And
Who is this? Whose stuff is this?
this is
Kip.
Kip's garden. Kip McMichaels.
Right. I couldn't go. I was too exhausted.
Well, you'll have to go again, because it's right on the street.
Yeah, I drove by it. I saw.
Oh, good. Well, it's amazing. So he has all those Calicortis. Anyway, anybody else want to mention anything about his garden there?
But just thanks to Judy for introducing him to us. I mean, here he lives within a mile of me, and I never noticed somehow. It's just and Ken told me he was really inspired and it gave him all sorts of ideas for his own.
Well, I have to give credit to Dick Turner, because he's the one that told me about it. And that's how I contacted him for a Western Hort Talk. And then I thought, well, maybe a visit would be nice. And it certainly surpassed all of my expectations.
Really
Me too.
fabulous. I wanted to thank Kip and Patrick very much. They were so generous and welcoming, and they gave people little samples of things to take home and try. And it was the most beautiful place. It was astounding, the amount of work that he's put into that front garden.
Yeah.
It's just astounding.
Actually, it was interesting. It was in kind of partial shade because he had, I don't know if it, tree aloe that was shading part of it. And then also the silk gloss tree, Charicia, or now it's Sevia speciosa.
There was a Charicia in the corner.
Yeah. But it was kind of dappled shade, which I think is, I think probably helps with most succulents to a certain.
Yeah, I think succulents don't want to be cooked.
Yeah, I think that's
It was
Good
beautiful,
point.
really stunning.
so I think I saw Connie arrive.
Yes, it was so interesting to see Kip's, plants like this. But I've had this for years and it hasn't.
Connie, are you still there? You may want to turn off your video if so we can hear you. I know I wanted to hear how tall this was. It's kind of hard to tell. Really kind of craggy and old looking. I love it. See,
I
definitely.
just got disconnected, so I
Okay,
hope I'm on now.
I'll go back to your other. How tall is your euphorbia?
It's maybe 15 inches.
Oh, okay. And then did you get this? You said that it was possibly Harita.
Right,
Oh,
because it looks like the one that Kip has, and that's what
Okay.
he said it was.
oh, good. Yeah, that's really gorgeous.
And then the monkey flower, I'm not sure where it came from. The mimulus just popped up recently, and it's growing vigorously.
Did it seed itself in that yellow pot?
No,
that
no,
was the-
it's, the yellow, it's a yellow pot's a cash pot. It's in a little plastic pot inside that one. But that is, but it did pop up, in some recycled soil.
How fun.
But I've not had one of these before, and it was a really nice surprise.
Always nice when a little guy comes up and you're not expecting it. Thank you. And then,
And all I know is it likes to be wet.
yes, yeah, commonly it'll grow in kind of streams by streams and such like that. Okay, Kristen.
Okay, so these are Bacchanaria pictures from my garden, and on the left is a hybrid from Martin Grantham. He came one winter. He always likes to dump plants that he's getting rid of on me because I've got land. And we were walking around the garden, just planting them willy-nilly in all areas that get no water. And I don't even think he's seen these, and I don't really see a big difference in all the Bacchanaриas. So, except that this is much redder than the one on the right, which is the variegated one flower. And did I only send you one picture? I guess so. This is just amazing how it came up. This year, I didn't think I put the plant in my garden because I was looking for some winter color. The variegation is yellow, and I just figured, it won't bloom. And it did. And actually in some lights, it glows. Unlike the other Bacchanaria, which absorbs a lot of light because of its darkness. So it was very exciting to have this plant come into bloom. And I just am contrasting it with Martin's hybrids that are, the much darker. And it looks like an asparagus, as Ellen noted that it's in the Asparagaceae. Great plant, grows dry, grows wet, any which way you want it to grow.
How tall do the flower spiders go?
Some of them get close to 8 feet. They're showy.
And it looks like the flowers of the variegated are kind of striped as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Just the variegation only comes out as a lighter stem, but it glows. And ironically, the way it's positioned, I can see it from my bedroom, even though it's by the sidewalk. So it's just, with all this weather we've been having, it's very, it shows up unbelievably magically.
Nice. Okay, thank you, Kristen. Oops. And Judy.
So this Resnova megaphylla, I think there's 2 L's in megaphylla, but this was in Kip's sun greenhouse, and it was just so attractive. And so I think he was very generous. He shared some seedlings that he'd grown from seed with us. And so I'm kind of hopeful that I can get it to go to also bloom, because I think it's a very attractive plant. It's used to be in Ledibirdia, I think, or it's related to it. So anyway, very attractive plant. And he had several plants in the same pot. So Mary Sue offered some bulbs through the Pacific Bulb Society, and it was just a bunch of bulbs that she had. And she said, it's kind of like potluck, whatever you get. So this is one of the ones that she sent out. And I sent a picture to her a couple of days ago, and she thought it was Tritonia lineata, but I think Ellen might be right that it's more likely Tritonia crocata. So I don't know if anyone grows this and can confirm one way or the other what it is, but it's got a very nice flower. I like the color, and it looks like it'll be pretty easy to bloom.
Judy, is the Resnova a summer dry
Yes.
plant? Aha.
No, actually, I take it back. I take it back. Let's see, what did I have here? It grows in the grasslands of the southeastern Cape, and it copes with a meted growing cycle, although it is a summer rainfall species. So it does accept summer water. It is deciduous though, and it'll bloom in spring or summer, and it will tolerate some regular water is what
Wow.
I found when I looked it up. Does need very well drained soil though.
You would think in the grasslands that it would be all covered up and not get much light, at least with our grasslands.
Well, maybe it does in the summertime, but in the spring, maybe not so much. I don't know.
Yeah, and they're dry there, by the way, in their
The southeastern Cape.
southeastern Cape is dry in the winter. So the
Yeah.
grasslands would be dried up.
Ah,
when they're blooming. Got it.
yeah.
And
I mean,
so-
his sun house or his greenhouse was quite dry, and he had a number of plants that had codexes and things like that in there. So it was pretty dry.
Yeah, if they're coming out of the winter, they want to be dry and then they'd want to be wet and probably don't mind being in the grasses then.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Judy. Oh, and you have a little bit more of Kip's garden.
oh, yeah, I just thought I'd send him in case for those of you that missed visiting his garden, because it really is really worthy of a visit. But this is a narrow raised succulent planting, and it's just along his driveway, but it's gorgeous. And then the one on the right is, this is probably 15 inches wide, would you say, Ellen and Mark? And
Yeah.
he just
Not very
finished
wide.
planting this like 1 or 2 weeks before we visited, and it looks like it's been there forever. But it
Yeah.
had, yeah, wonderful plant material, and it was just lovely.
Everything tucked in just so.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, so I
Judy
wanted to show this.
and
I've
Charlotte.
Yeah, I've shown this before actually, but I'm really pleased because I didn't realize Cantua really, the blooming really improves with the plant maturing, because last year I had half a dozen flowers, and this year I have sprays of flowers like this. And so I guess it really needs to be mature, because I have one that has the red flowers that's been in my garden probably twice as long. It's covered with flowers this year, but this is the first year I've really gotten a good bloom on the tricolor. So it looks like Charlotte's is really happy too.
And the red one is the one you usually see that we saw with Mark in that earlier.
Right,
graph.
right.
So Charlotte, what do you have to say?
This one I bought from Annie's as the golden Inca, and everyone told me it would not bloom. And I didn't really want to put it in the garden, in the ground, until I could see what the flowers look like. So I put it in a huge pot, and I've had it for 6 years. And this is the first flower I've gotten on it.
How big is it? How tall is it?
The whole plant,
Those are great.
it's like in a 7-gallon container, I think. And so it's maybe about as tall as I am, including that container.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I kind of heard that they don't like heat, so.
Yeah, mine gets morning sun, but in the late afternoon, it's kind of on the edge of my redwood tree, so it does get shade. But I'm with you, Charlotte. I was thinking, like, is this thing ever going to bloom? And then it blooms.
And mine is kind of at the corner of my garden, adjacent to the neighbor's redwood tree too. But it does get, the tree is limbed up high enough so that there is light that comes to the plant. It's kind of, because it's on a south wall, so it gets a fair amount of light.
I think there are also just golden flowered varieties. This one is called tricolor, or mine is called tricolor, but I know there's one called hot pants. I think that's more kind of a hot pink flowers too. So there are quite a bit of variety in species
And I
or
have-
in cultivars.
A yellow and white one that just blooms its head off, and right from the get-go it did. So
Really? Wow.
yeah.
Well, so Charlotte, is yours a tricolor also, or you said golden?
I
what-
bought it from Annie's and it was labeled golden Inca.
Huh.
So I mean, other than trying to do genetic testing on it, how can I verify what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, well, and Judy, your photo doesn't show what the inside looks like. Is it the same, or is Charlotte's really a different clone?
Her seems a little bit lighter, but no, mine definitely has the 3 colors. And I was reading and it said it's possible on the same shrub to have flowers of different colors. And I'm like, oh, great. So I guess occasionally you'll get like red flowers on the tricolor one.
Really? Huh. Well,
Yeah.
so then it's sort of like a chimera.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you, guys. Bobby.
Oh, hi there. You got the giant discussion on the side of it, so you have it for live here. This is my Leptospermum continentale horizontalis. This is about 2/3 of it. It used to be called Leptospermum scoparium horizontalis, and sometimes it goes back to that name. Suncrest Nursery calls it prickly tea tree. It's also known as prostrate New Zealand tea tree, even though it's from Australia. Leptos are in the Myrtaceae. This year's bloom has been spectacular. It's been going on now for about 3 weeks at least. And it's got thousands of little 3/4 inch white flowers. This is trained down a couple of stairways and across a patio. And I've had this, I got this in the mid-70s. Jerry Rogers and I went on a day trip to Sonoma, and we went to Manning's Heather Farm, which is now out of business many years. And I got this little 1-gallon can, and I've been lightly working on the printing of this over the years. This is 34 feet long, and it isn't prostrate like on the ground. It's about 4 or 5 feet high, and then it cascades over. And so I nibble it back when it starts to take over the path. It's got various paths around it, but it's a terrific plant. This plant survived the 20-degree extended frost in 1990 with no damage. It's growing in Oakland Hills and Montclair, and I have about 45% clay in my soil. I took the class. And yeah, I was looking for a little more about Manning's Heather Farm. I found an old article from Sunset Magazine from 1986 that was about going on an adventure in beautiful Sonoma County and going to the nurseries. It included Manning's Heather Farm. And all the phone numbers had no area codes. So it folded in about that era, I think. It hasn't been around for a long time. They specialized in heathers. It was wonderful. And they had unusual things as well. You can still get this from time to time from Suncrest and a few other nurseries. I've planted it in client gardens, and it's easily, it says on the internet that it gets like 4 feet to 6 feet wide. Well, mine is, already at least 35 feet wide, and it wants to go much farther. But it's a treat. It's a really wonderful plant. And up above it, there's a lovely rose it's got a kind of a cup shape. It's a David Austin rose called Lady Emma Hamilton. And as we all know, Lady Emma Hamilton was Lord Nelson's mistress. This is really outrageously fragrant, The buds come out in kind of a really beautiful ruby red, and then it gradually turns to this peachy apricot. And it's just dynamite as a cut flower. It only lasts a couple days in a vase and then collapses all over the table. And then you can keep the petals for potpourri, but it's a beautiful thing. So this is just a little view of my garden with the greenhouse in the back.
Nice.
Any questions?
Your little leptospermum looks like a little filigree skirt or lace skirt underneath your rose.
It does. This is really quite large. It's got to be 6 feet wide and 5 feet tall. And then, of course, it's much bigger than my greenhouse. It's huge. And I've had it since the mid-70s. It's invincible.
Bobby,
Yeah, sure.
have you tried to propagate the leptospermum?
I haven't. I have not tried to propagate it because it's
I-
available in the trade.
Oh, in the trade. I have other ones that some are less available. And I was once on a discussion list with Australian people, and I said, how do you propagate this or grow it from seed? And they said, oh, just pick up all the thousands of cuttings at the base of of starts at the base of the plant. And I said, it doesn't do that here.
No, mine has none.
ahead.
Mine has no sprouts.
No, same here, but in Australia, where
Apparently it
it's
does.
native and perfect for them, they start right below the tree. So
Yeah,
Anyway, it's
if this was
beautiful.
a runner, if this was a runner, it would be everywhere by now. You know, it's 40 years old. So this is quite contained, considering how enormous it is. And I just prune off occasional branches. It has these great little nut-like things that are the little seed pods that are persistent on the branches. So it's kind of ornamental. You could use it like in Christmas decorations or wreath making or something like that.
So now we've got a little grouping of dogwoods. We have Bart and Saxon.
Yeah, that's one of our several Cornus nataliis at the Regional Parks Botanic Garden. The plant is actually found from San Diego County all the way up the Pacific coast to Alaska.
How far west?
How far west?
Rockies?
It's actually found in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It's
I
very
meant
rare
east,
there.
excuse me. I meant
East, it's into the Sierra foothills or up into the Sierra. So if you visit Yosemite and go to Vernal Falls, you'll see a lot of them in late May. They're having a very good year this year at the garden. And I see that Saxon's plant is Eddie's White Wonder, which is a hybrid between Cornus florida and Cornus natalii that was done by the nurseryman Eddie up in Washington, wasn't it? And that he actually did a whole bunch of them. And then there was a big flood and it killed all of them, or destroyed all of them except for one. And that one became Eddie's White Wonder. It is much, much more vigorous and easy to grow than Natalii is. And we even had Eddie's White Wonder at Rancho Santa Ana for quite a while. As you can see in the photo on the right, it's actually taken with a flash and at night, because it's very difficult to photograph white flowering trees with a diverse background. The white just gets lost. So that gives you an idea of how many flowers there are. That plant, I believe, is about 25 years old. They're slow growing. And they do tend to have bark that is thin, that sunburns if it gets too much sun. That one used to be shaded by a large Fremont cottonwood that we had to take down because it was dropping too many branches. So I'll let Saxon talk about his plant.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to hear you say it was easy to grow, Bart, because I don't have any trouble with it. I just love it because it's so big and it's really easy. I find it a little bit hard to prune. It's somewhat gangly, and I'm trying to keep it in a space near my between my office and my house. But it has a good year right now. It's blooming nice, and I say it's pretty easy to grow.
okay.
Yeah, and actually, I should mention that how you can easily tell our native dogwood from the East Coast dogwood. The East Coast dogwood just has 4 of those white bracts, and that those aren't petals, they are just white bracts. The flowers are actually those clusters of little teeny tiny flowers that are in the middle. And that Cornus natalii can have anywhere from 4 to 9 of those white bracts. And rarely does a plant have just 4, although I suppose you might find one on occasion. But the East Coast one, Cornus florida, has only 4. And so that's how you can tell Eddie's White Wonder is a hybrid. It has a lot of characteristics of both, and that it does have more than 4 of the white bracts.
Okay, I have a question for you then. If the Rockies has dogwoods, they have Cornus Florida then?
I'm not sure that the Rockies does have native dogwoods.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
other than the shrubby ones. I mean, the shrubby
Yeah.
ones are very common across the US and don't have the white showy bracts.
Right,
And,
but I mean, of
and
the
we
two.
have a bunch of other native species of dogwoods in addition to Natalii.
Florida is an Appalachian tree.
Yeah. That's-
It
Yeah.
only goes that far east.
Well, I think it
West.
goes up into the north too, into Massachusetts, doesn't it?
Oh,
Piedmont.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of an East Coast thing. And I think it does go all the way down into Florida and all the way up into New England.
Okay, so it's pretty much East Coast, West Coast, nothing in the middle. Got it.
As far as I know, but I would need to check for sure.
Okay.
Cornus, Florida is east of the Mississippi and probably a little bit west of the Mississippi and in wet woodlands.
Hmm.
Way up into northern Michigan.
Okay. Thank you there, Dick. Okay.
Yeah, and it's generally considered to be a much easier plant to grow than our native one, and that you do see a lot of horticultural selections of Cornus Florida in coastal California gardens. There's quite a few of them in the Berkeley Hills.
Oh, we have them in Danville. They do very well here.
Hmm.
With water, of course.
Okay, Saxon.
Well, I see you've got some of my pictures up. I don't know how you got my watermark on them. When I sent them to you, didn't intend to put a watermark on them.
Oh, well, I was wondering, I got them off the website or your original.
Oh, the original. Oh,
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted those on there or not, but
yeah. Oh, I don't care. I just don't. There's nothing. They're not that special. As I like to do for these meetings, I go in my garden one day and just shoot whatever I think is interesting. It's a little bit, odd for me to do so many because seeing the other members with their truly unusual things, it's more interesting than my garden. There's lots of things what surprises me about my garden is so much does well. It's just so amazing. I can have so many different things going on. Madame Perrier is my favorite rose. I have 13 roses because it's so fragrant. I just I say to die for. It's really spectacularly fragrant. I think Graham Thomas thought it was the most fragrant rose there was. That can be debatable, but it's starting to bloom now. It's a really good year. That iris I got from the Bancroft garden. Ruth Bancroft, as you all know, is a great iris collector. When I got this one, I bought it as a rhizome, not knowing what the real color was. I was told it was a coppery color, which I like, and I happened by good chance put it under my weeping purple beech. And in some years, I've taken the same picture. There's lots of irises blooming at exactly the same time the tree is leafing out. This year, there's only one so far. So I took this, when I walked into the garden the other day, I had one blooming, and it really looks great with the purple beech. It just had the exact same colors for about, 10 days. And then the beech gets darker and darker. So
yeah,
That's a terrific photo, Saxon.
I wish I knew the name of the iris. It would be nice. But anyway.
Ruth, where are you?
So
It was a combo here again. You go with your Ixia, I'll go with my Ixia.
oh, the Ixia. That's one of the new Ixias I got from Liberto in Greece. None of you can probably tell is the grass around it. For those of you who went to Chile, that's the stipa that we collected at that one estate garden. And I propagated a bunch of them. So there's 5 or 6 of them there. They'll look great, hopefully, in a couple of months when they flower and go to seed, but seeds come up. But I planted them there to combine them because Ixias can have a really grassy-like foliage. So I thought they would look good together. And I just love the orange. It's exactly the same color as poppies. I have them elsewhere in that bulb meadow, and the poppy is exactly the same color as that Ixia.
Okay, mine is the turquoise Ixia, Ixia viridiflora. And the other night or the other afternoon, I went out to take a picture and they were all closed up. And evidently they must close up when it's either cool or shady. So, and then I guess yesterday they opened up in the sunshine. Go, oh, there's the center of them. And this gets no summer water, and it's like regular Ixia, just does its own thing. And it has
Jealous.
like
The
flowers.
color is amazing. I never get them that color for some reason.
No. Huh.
No, mine are always washed out. And
Huh.
I just think it's, I got seedlings that aren't good. I'm still working on it someday.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular color for sure.
It is. You don't get much turquoise in the flower world.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. Okay.
Yeah, well, just as I say, I just walked through the garden on Thursday and took pictures of what was happening. And the first clematis are flowering. I just, I don't do anything special. They just keep coming back and blooming. What is sort of special this year is the sweet peas. My wife loves sweet peas, and 2 years ago, we bought some from Annie, a various collection of what Annie was selling as sort of unusual ones. They've all flowered, and they just scattered their seeds all over the ground. And I didn't do anything to them, but there are dozens of them all clamming through the ground like a ground cover now. They scramble back up onto the trellis next to them, and I'm very excited. My wife particularly is very excited because we have so many more sweet peas this year than we did last year. So that's it's really fun. They're very fragrant. They're just again so easy. They came up on their own and have gotten no water except what happened in the all that water we got in December, which made them so healthy, I guess.
Nice.
That looks like the cultivar called Kupani, which
Yes.
Andy kind of specializes in. And I find it to be the most fragrant of all.
Is surprisingly fragrant. I always thought only the white ones were fragrant, but no, this Kupani is definitely fragrant. And apparently it came true from the seeds. We had, I bought 6 of ones that Annie had based on her description. And I wasn't sure which ones have come back. Mary, my wife, loves the orange one. There's an orange one that wasn't flowering enough to capture in this image, but they seem to have come back from them. And anyway, it's really fun.
Nice. My mom used to have a clematis that looked very similar to that, but it was Nellie Mosier. I'm not sure if that one's a bigger one or similar look though to it.
It's very similar.
To the one on the left, to Dr. People there.
And I think I've mentioned before, I have a secret weakness for fragrant species rhododendrons. And when they're flowering, it's just, it's very heady. I can, be in bliss just walking through. The Ciliate Calyx Q is one of my favorites. I think the regular Ciliate Calyx is not normally white, but that Q is. I don't know enough about it to know, but it's really wonderful. Macronulatums I have 2 of them, and both are really fragrant. They're more sprawling than upright, but they're, again, very fragrant. And then the Golden Comet is one of the deciduous azaleas I really like to have because it's so bright. And it just happens this year I have a bunch of, not so much volunteers, I moved around heucheras. They're so easy here that I moved around those. I think I'm pretty sure it's Rosata. And it just happened to look great, last Thursday when I was walking through the garden. I think anyone who would look carefully would realize the heuchera is actually out of focus. So, but
Is the luteum fragrant as well?
yes, not as intense as some of the others. I bought it because I wanted a deciduous one at that point in the garden, and I didn't really know how yellow that was going to be, but it's every year about this time it really stands out in the garden because it's so bright.
Show it.
That Janet Starnes hellebore is really one of my favorite. I really have a fondness for silver variegation, and that Janet Starnes is really silvery. It's really a favorite, and it's, again, the hellebores are generally pretty easy, so they keeps coming back. That variegated Weigelia is sort of an accident. I said I wanted to just try it, not thinking it would survive in the garden because I don't give it any special water. It's in the rhododendron garden, so I do have an emitter on it, so it doesn't go dry all summer. But I thought they would require a lot of water. And it looks it's good right now. And then that ranunculus, it's all over the place. For those of you who know it, it spreads, and you have to take it out because it's pretty deeply rooted. But it's so big. I can't remember where I got the seeds. I think Phyllis Faber gave me those seeds years ago. But it's just so easy. It comes up all over the place, and again, you have to take them out because they dominate. But they're so easy. I just let them. I probably have 12 or so of them in the garden, and I'll just cut them back and continually pull them out in the spring because they will get deeply rooted if you let them go. But they're just bold and easy. So I like bold and easy.
Didn't Ted Kipping have that in his front yard?
Yeah, he definitely had it, and it's for sale at Annie's. And I think even Wayne Roderick used to have it as well.
Yeah, I like it because it's so bold, but I would caution. I have a pretty big garden, so I can afford to have them come up and let them go. But they get pretty big. I think that's 2 plants right there, but that's probably 4 feet tall by about 3 feet wide right there. So they're really big. That's why they're so fun.
It looks daintier in the picture.
No, that's 3 feet tall anyway. So
Wow.
Yeah, they're spectacular plants. I've always liked them. I have them in my garden too. The one thing you didn't mention is that they have spectacular foliage also.
Yeah.
The leaves are almost round and very hairy and about a foot or so across. The plants generally like sun, but not hot sun. If it's too hot, the flowers will burn. So they like some high shade or occasional shade, or full hot sun near the coast where I am. That's
What about dry
doesn't phase
shade?
them at all. Driest shade is fine. I always grew them at my house in Upland also,
Might try
on the
those.
shadier sides. And they'd go completely dormant, and you think they might not come back, but they almost always do.
In the summer?
No, they come back in the winter.
Oh, they go.
No, I mean, they
Perfectly
dry down in the
adapted
summer.
to our climate.
Yeah,
So die down in the summer, I meant, yeah.
Yeah, die down in spring, end of spring.
When they're
It's
done
actually
flowering.
from the Canary Islands. So again, very very well adapted to Bay Area gardens.
I think it's why I have a lot of trees, so I have a lot of high shade. I don't have a really area of my garden that's really super hot all day long. So that's probably why Bart said it may not really like really hot sun inland, but I don't get a lot of hot sun all day.
Yeah, in my garden in Upland, which got to be up to 115 regularly in the summer, they never got as big. But they always came up, always came back, or almost always. They were just much smaller. I would say down there, the biggest they ever got was about 2 feet. And here it's 4 feet without blinking an eye.
Really? Oh, sure.
They're very, very well adapted to here. The other thing I'd mention is that Weigelia is very easy in California gardens, particularly west of the Central Valley. I remember them from my grandparents' ranch garden. They were old established plants. They didn't get much summer water or much care. But they flowered heavily every spring. They were on the north or in a northwest corner of the garden. And again, just easy. I think that the reason that they aren't seen more in our gardens is they're deciduous. And most people don't like deciduous plants in California where you can grow anything all the time. But they're very, very beautiful and nice plants.
That maybe is why I like it. I much prefer deciduous trees and shrubs. So I guess it's actually gets like lilacs, do great with literally no summer water, because once they get rooted, they're really tough. So I'm interested to hear that you say other Weigelias can do it, because this gets, say it has one small emitter. It had one small emitter for 15 years. It had the same, so it hasn't grown all that much either, which is nice. But it seems to be pretty well adapted to my backyard. So.
I have 3 different kinds, and actually there's now a reblooming Weigelia, which
Oh.
hasn't rebloomed for me yet, but it's almost like a dwarf one. It's short. But the one thing I've learned about Weigelias, if you're going to prune them, and they do get big in my garden, you're going to prune them immediately after the bloom, because you don't want to prune the new growth. You want to prune the old growth. They bloom on the previous year's wood. Just
Yeah.
sharing that. If you don't prune them, it's not an issue, but I prune mine because I plant by the square inch.
Yeah, and that unpruned, because my grandparents didn't prune theirs. It was about 8 feet or so tall and wider.
Yeah.
Well, this one I've never pruned, and it's only about 5 feet tall right now. It hasn't. I've pruned a couple of small branches just that have died, but I haven't tried to keep it down at all. It just sits.
But maybe the cooler weather plays a role.
It's pretty shady. It's in my oak rhododendron garden, so it's pretty shady.
Good color for the shade, though. Huh?
Hmm. And this, I just I can never get too many photos of my Calensias. This is our back hillside, and the Calensias are native wildflowers. It could actually contrast that with the yellow native buttercups. The little native buttercup is so much smaller than the Canary Island one, but it's native and just dances amongst the wildflowers really easily. Interesting story, just if you'll suffer this. When my wife and I were first dating years ago, and we'd go out for hikes, she'd have a wildflower book and I have a camera, and we try to learn, the wildflowers, and we kept seeing this Chinese houses in the books as being common, and we never found it for years. We moved to this house in Novato. In the first year, our hillside was covered with them. They're just hundreds and maybe thousands of them. We do literally nothing. They come up, some good years and bad years. And I don't weed whack the backyard till June for fire, but I wanted the seeds to come back. What's interesting in this photograph, it's actually changing, because what you see in the white are that damned onion. And a lot of it, so I took this picture Thursday, and I've been doing a bunch of weeding, so I've taken a lot of them out because they keep spreading. But it looks sort of nice in the photograph with the white, the yellow, and the Calensias. But and that's a very steep. My house is right there, so you can imagine a very steep hill going down to the house. And right now it's just that one patch is just covered with the Calensias. Literally, there are hundreds and hundreds of them. It's meant to be.
Do you have a walkway going up, or do you have to?
Yeah, no, I have a series of small pathways on the hill. I'm kneeling on one right now, a little pathway looking down, to the house. There's that's a native maple just beginning to leaf out on the left. It's pretty late this year for the maples, at least in my yard. But it provides a nice little bit of shade, but it's basically it's really steep right there.
So Saxton, if you start eating the onion, you might be able to reduce it more easily.
Well,
Very good. I've been doing it.
It is good. No, it is.
Everything, including the flowers and the green seed heads, throw those on the salads that you have, and it has just a bit of an oniony flavor, and the seed heads are actually quite tasty. And,
It is.
and you have a better chance because it's dinner.
Can't beat 'em, eat 'em.
Yeah, I every year I pull some of it. It's only been a problem for the past 4 or 5, 6 years, maybe. I never noticed it. I don't know where the hell it came from. I didn't bother with it the first couple of years until I realized what it was, and now it's spreading out. And anyway, it's
You'll never get rid of it. I moved to this house and it was all over, and
Okay.
I punished my children for having them to, when they did something wrong, I made them go weed it out, and it never disappears. I find a whole new patch that I hadn't paid attention to the area. They grow
you're right.
dry.
I find it jumping up somewhere you know, 30 feet away, you know, at the seed.
Right.
Yeah. So,
So
so another picture, the picture of the Cattleya, I just don't really, Cattleyas are really nothing that special, I suppose. I like this one because it's brown colored. It has a coppery reddish tint to it. So I like it for that. And we didn't have a hard enough freeze this year, so it didn't really get killed. But I put it in my driveway just underneath these manzanita. And when I was hunting for photos the other day, I said, well, I wonder if I should take a picture of the Cattleya. And I looked, and the manzanita was behind it. And I said, wow, what a nice, you know, nice combination. If I were in a professional photo shoot of some kind, I would probably move it around to be exactly match the colors and put it right up underneath it to really emphasize that. But still, it was nice to see that was a nice combination. And that manzanita, I think I've shared with you guys before. It's one of my favorites. It's really big in my driveway, but it has as most manzanitas do. They have that great deep mahogany color to the bark.
Matches
Yeah,
perfectly.
that's a Cymbidium, not a Cattleya.
Oh, of course. Thank you. It is, of course.
I didn't even catch that either.
No, yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Cattleyas are much more delicate than so. Anyway, thanks. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I think that's it. Robbie, are you?
I'm here. Actually, most of the information is printed. The
Well, tell us
trillium.
about your adventure with the trillium.
Yeah, I've had this plant. I've only got the one, and I got it a couple of years ago, I think just before the pandemic, at the Glide Wildflower Show up here. And I set it underneath a huge rhododendron, forgot about it, and I didn't see any bloom on it for a couple of years. And all of a sudden this year, I see it bloom, and every week it just kind of changed color. And I'm looking at this thing, this is really fascinating. And I guess it's been in bloom for over a month now, and it's much darker. But I'm loving it, and I wish I'd gotten more of them, and I think I'm going to try and find some more.
Yeah, that's amazing how long it lasts. I always think of them as very fleeting, but I don't really know about them that much. So
They
must be a
grow,
long
they
time.
they like a dry period in the summer because they go dormant. So that's always good to know.
Thank you for sharing. That's really cool.
Yeah, trilliums are considered spring ephemerals. Most of them are from deciduous forests, not all, but many. And so they come up and flower before the trees leaf out. And then as the trees leaf out, the plants begin to go dormant and then go dormant for the summer. They do live a long, long time. I'd say much longer than 25 years. And they can make little colonies from the one plant, although they oftentimes do come up from seed around the original plant also. So when you see little tiny plants with 3 leaves, those are seedlings, not additional branches of the rhizome, because the branches on the rhizomes will always appear much, much larger than seedlings do.
Oh, they come up by rhizomes as well?
Yeah, well, they are a rhizome. But
They're bulbs.
for many, many years, they're just the one bud, one terminal growth. But with age, they usually will branch and can have, I think, upwards of like 25 stems on a really old one.
One for each year if they last 25 years, right?
That's great information.
Well, they live a lot longer than 25 years. If you have 25 stems, it's way older than 25.
Okay.
They take a long time develop from seed, though, I read.
Yes, all of those that we sell at the Botanic Garden are grown from seed, and that it's usually about 7 to 10 years before they flower. And so that's why they're usually expensive. And that's a problem with some areas and some places where they're actually dug up from the wild and sold. So if you see trilliums being sold cheaply, they're almost for sure illegally dug.
Or not blooming.
Right. Well, if they're small and not flowering yet, they're probably grown from seed.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Gee, thanks, Bart.
Sure.
Good to know. Now we've got Bart.
A couple of things there. Those are two of the irises that are in flower right now. They seem to be a little bit early to me. On the left is Iris bracteata, which is widespread and good yellow form with brown veins. The flowers are about 3 inches or so across, so it's not a tiny iris, but they generally don't have much foliage. So, and they prefer dappled shade under deciduous trees. In the middle is our largest native iris by far, and that's Iris munzii. It's from the southern Sierra foothills in the area around Coffee Creek and Tulare County. The flowers are what, about the size of your hand.
Wow.
They're really quite large. It's notable for having, it's the only species iris in the Pacifica group that has pure blue in it. And so most of the hybrid irises that are true blues of the Pacificas actually have Iris munzii in them. The form that we have most in the garden is this very pale form, but it seems to last. Many times in gardens, Iris munzii is short-lived because it tends to bloom out. Usually if the head of the rhizome produces a flower, if it's not real vigorous plant, that ends it. If there are more shoots that are vegetative, it usually keeps going. Sometimes a flowering shoot will put out additional vegetative shoots, but not always and not reliably. And then on the right is the last of the native fritillarias to bloom in our garden. That's Fritillaria rodrickii from the Boonville Cemetery and named after Wayne Roderick. The flowers are very small. This one, it's the first year that it's bloomed. So the flower is only about 3/4 of an inch across. The plant itself is about 6 or 8 inches in height. Older ones that we have get up to about 1.5 feet in height, and the flowers can be over an inch across. But their affinities to Fritillaria biflora are fairly evident here, which is the chocolate lily, because of the coloring. However, Rodrickii and Inesiana, which occurs on the peninsula, have these green markings on the middle of the outside of the tepals. It is just a very nice and unusual fritillaria to see. These were grown from seed, or this one, that was sown in 2010. So it's 12 years later, and this is the first flower.
Wow. That's amazing to keep something alive that long, actually.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
The irises are much easier and much faster from seed.
But they're different.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And then for large-ish deciduous flowering trees, sarvisberry is a plant that you almost never see in California gardens, and it's native. There are actually two species that are native. This is here in the Botanic Garden right now, um, full bloom, and it's Amelanchier utahensis. Um, it's easy. It does have edible berries that follow, small fruits. Um, that are purplish, and then the foliage looks sort of like a deciduous prunus. They're not exciting, but that they're not boring either. It's just sort of a glaucous bluish color, blue-green color. Um, Very nice plants. They frequently are multi-stemmed, and so it's something that if it doesn't, or if it's not super vigorous for you, or it's declined in vigor, you can coppice it. You can cut it completely to the ground and it'll come back, just like redbud. This plant's probably about 20 feet or so in height, and it's equally wide. It could easily be, though, narrowed at the base if one wanted to.
It's showy.
Yeah, very showy and very popular with bees.
Hey, Bart, you said it's easy. I have one I planted 3 years ago, and it's barely surviving. It's in my little area where I have styrax and Philadelphus, and so the habit should be fine. But does it need a lot of sun? Mine is it's barely hanging on. Did it take a couple years to take off?
They prefer full sun,
Oh,
but yeah, all of ours at the Botanic Garden are in sun. One of them's in partial shade. It doesn't flower as much.
okay, that's probably it.
But yeah, usually they're pretty easy.
Well, anyway, I like it, having another deciduous native, but it's just not. Anyway, I suspect it needs more sun.
Yeah, just not performing for you.
Uh,
They're the nearest ones that I know of to here that flower well are around Mount Hamilton, but I'm sure there's some around closer in that I just am not aware of.
Okay, well, no, thanks. It's great. It's inspiring to see one this big. It's right here. That's a Tilden, so that's, I think maybe I saw it there is why I thought I could grow it, but anyway, I'm disappointed at the moment. But sometimes things take a while to decide they want to grow.
How
Yeah,
long have
well,
you had it,
that's true
Saxon?
too.
I had it 3 years. I got a 1 gallon can 3 years ago, and it's still about the size of a 1 gallon can. It's barely. In fact, I looked at it a week ago, and I thought it hadn't made it through the winter, but it's alive. It's got tiny little buds on it, but it's just not. I,
Huh.
I think it's too shady, I guess, because it's it's under a couple of trees. My styrax and Philadelphus get a little more sun, and I put this one. Anyway, I may move it. It's so small, I can still move it.
Yeah, I'd say it probably wants a bit more sun than the Philadelphus,
hmm
but if you gave it what the Philadelphus is getting, it should be fine.
Yeah, well, they're 7 feet apart, so I don't.
Huh.
Anyway, I'll just wondering.
Yeah, and then two plants from Southern California, Linanthus or Leptodactylon californicus on the left, prickly phlox, and on the right, one of our real showy penstemons, Penstemon clevelandii, variety conatus. Both of those are good long, well, the Linanthus is a very long-lived perennial. The penstemon is one of the more dependable penstemons for our garden. Those plants are now 3 years old and don't show any signs of slowing down. They flowered very heavily each year. We've collected lots of seeds from them. I think I had put seeds of this into, well, I know I did, into the seed exchange. So hopefully people got them, and that's what it looks like. Very, very nice plant. The Linanthus only gets about knee high, and in the wild, usually they're in very well drained, full sun, a lot of times road cuts. And they just make these little hemispheres of flowers. At our botanic garden, or here in the Berkeley Hills, they just flower like crazy for months on end. This has already been blooming over a month. And last year they were still in flower in July. So a lot longer than in the wild. It can be a plant that's difficult to get, but a large piece of one got broken off, what, 3 years ago now? And it was in the summer. And Theo stuck all the cuttings and all of them took. So it's definitely a plant to do cuttings of in summer, which seems counterintuitive, but it worked, and that's why we have so many of them now planted all over the garden. Both plants really want full sun.
I remember seeing the leptodactyl on San Marcos Pass up above Santa Barbara on the road cuts.
Yeah. Yeah, and you also see it in the San Gabriels and the San Bernardinos and the Santa Anas, and really quite widespread. It does have very prickly little leaves. So prickly phlox is a good name for it. And it is a phlox relative, but it is a dryland species.
It was in full bloom along the Ortega Highway. I guess that's Orange County, about 4 weeks ago. Spectacular, but I could never get up close to it. I was always up tucked into the chaparral above the highway.
Yep, that's where they oftentimes are. And yeah, the Ortega Highway, that's what, the Santa Ana Mountains and Cleveland National Forest.
I think that's right.
Bart, I'm curious about a plant in the background of the Linanthus photograph with the strappy leaves. To the right, upper right.
Oh, the plant in the upper right there that's sort of bright green, that's actually a young Washingtonia fan palm.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Did you write?
California fan palm, Washingtonia foliifera.
Oh, okay, really?
Yep, it's just a young one.
Very young one.
Yep. They're very, very slow growing in our area in general, because they really don't like coastal conditions or near coastal conditions. They like hot and wet.
Well, Ted came up earlier and Saxon sent this.
Oh yeah, it's a brick at UC Berkeley Botanic Garden. I had some money to make donations last year, and it turned out that I qualified for a brick, and so I just thought Ted was a great guy. I don't know. I just thought they asked him. They said there was no brick already with his name on it, so I just donated it to Ted, and I thought everyone might like to know. It's that's what it says. I didn't ask anyone for the wording of it, but I would love to have his wife's email address. Bart, I'm sure you keep in touch. I've forgotten her name already, but she's so sweet. And
Diana.
Diana, yeah, of course, yeah. So I'd like to get her email and send her a picture of the brick.
So where are the bricks? The Is that in the courtyard, right?
Yeah, they have a donor courtyard, and if you give them a certain amount of money, you can get a brick. And so I said, well, why not? And so and anyway, that's what it says, and I hope the wording meets approval of those who knew Ted better than I did.
Yeah, that's nice. He was such a big part of Cal Hort for sure. That was nice. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that, Saxon. It's beautiful.
Yes, that's wonderful.
It seemed right.
Yeah, very nice.
It's great.
Okay, so in June or in May, we're not having a plant forum. So save your photos for June and send them to me on June 20th. And we'll do it all again. And then.
Thank you, everybody, for doing this. And Ellen, you have been really amazing.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Just
Yes.
amazing.
Yay, Ellen. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Ellen. Bye.
Bye.